Hello, Virgo. Mm, I have to be honest with you about something before this reading begins. I sat with your energy for a long time before I pressed record, longer than usual. Not because what I was reading was unclear, because it was almost too clear, because what came through when I connected with where you are right now and where you are heading in the days immediately ahead of you had a quality that I did not want to rush, a quality of something that deserves to be delivered carefully, with the particular care of someone who understands that what they are holding is going to matter to the person receiving it, is going to land somewhere real, is going to reach a part of you that has been waiting in whatever way you have been waiting for exactly this. And what I kept coming back to, what kept surfacing every time I sat with the energy of your next week was a single phrase. It will take your breath away. Not as a dramatic flourish, not as the kind of language that sounds significant but means nothing in particular. As a precise, literal, accurate description of the physical experience you are going to have when what is coming for you next week actually arrives. There is going to be a moment, a specific, located, this is it moment, where something happens and your body registers it before your mind has processed it, where something in you that has been braced, that has been holding, that has been sustaining a particular kind of tension for longer than is comfortable, suddenly releases. And in that release, in the exhale that follows, you are going to understand what I mean. When I say it will take your breath away, I mean it literally. And I mean it completely, and it is coming. Next week, for you specifically, before I tell you what is coming, I need to tell you something about where you are right now. Because the two things are inseparable. What arrives next week is not random. It is not fortune smiling in a direction it could just as easily have not smiled. It is a direct response to a very specific place you have arrived at in your own internal journey. And I want to describe that place precisely because I think you may be underestimating how significant it is. You have been in a period of compression, not depression, compression, the specific experience of someone whose life is not expanding in the ways they know it is capable of expanding, where the space available to you emotionally, practically, creatively, relationally, has felt smaller than what you actually need, smaller than what you were built for. And you have been managing that compression with a particular kind of Virgo grace, which means you have been managing it quietly, efficiently, without making unnecessary noise about it, continuing to function at a high level in the compressed space while internally knowing with a clarity that is both your gift and your particular burden that this is not your full range of motion, that this is not what you are actually capable of when the conditions match your capacity. That awareness has been present, and it has coexisted in the way that Virgo energy tends to hold opposites simultaneously with an unextinguished, sometimes inconvenient, stubbornly persistent sense that the compression is temporary. That expansion is coming, that the space is about to open, that what you are capable of is about to have room to exist. That sense has been accurate. And next week is the beginning of its confirmation, the beginning of the space opening, The beginning of conditions beginning to match capacity. The beginning of you having room to actually be what you are. Now, let me tell you what is specifically coming, because I want to give you the full picture rather than the impressionistic sketch. I want to be precise enough that when next week arrives and things begin to unfold, you recognize what is happening for what it is, rather than experiencing it with the half awareness of someone who is too close to see the shape of it clearly. The first thing that is coming next week is a contact, a communication, something that reaches you from a direction you were not watching most carefully, not necessarily from someone you were not thinking about, but arriving through a channel or at a moment or with a quality of content that you were not specifically anticipating. There is going to be a message or a call or an in-person encounter that presents itself as ordinary and reveals itself to be something else entirely, that carries within it information or an offer or an expression of feeling, that shifts something, not adjusts something, shifts it in the way that a key turning in a lock shifts things. The mechanism was already there. The door was already built. This contact is the key. And when it arrives, when you feel the turning of it, something that has been closed is going to open. Something that has been stuck is going to move. Something that has felt fixed and immovable and resistant to all your careful, thorough Virgo effort to understand it and work with it and find the angle that finally gets traction is going to give way. Not because you found the right approach, because the right moment arrived, and the right moment is next week. And the key is already on its way to you through a hand you may not yet have identified, but that you will recognize the instant it is extended. The second thing that is coming next week is a revelation. And I want to distinguish this carefully from the ordinary kind of realization that comes from sustained reflection, from the gradual accumulation of understanding that produces conclusions over time. This is not that kind. This is the sudden kind, the kind that arrives in a moment rather than building toward one, the kind that has the particular quality of something you already knew at a level beneath your conscious awareness. Suddenly breaking through into full consciousness with the force of something that can no longer be contained beneath the surface. Like a truth that has been working its way upward through the layers of everything you have been telling yourself, the qualifications and the careful management of expectation and the reasonable cautions, and finally breaking through all of it to sit in the full light of your awareness where it cannot be managed back down. This revelation is going to be about something specific, something you have been in relationship with, either an actual relationship or a situation or a circumstance or a question about your own direction that has not been fully clear. That has had a quality of almost knowing but not quite, of sensing the shape of something without being able to see it directly. Next week, the seeing becomes direct. The almost knowing becomes knowing. And the clarity that arrives is going to have a quality of relief attached to it that tells you the not knowing has been costing you more than you realize. Because clarity, when it finally arrives after a sustained period of uncertainty, does not just inform, it releases. And the releasing is going to be one of the breathtaking moments I described at the beginning. One of the moments where something your body was holding finally lets go and you exhale in a way you have not exhaled in a very long time. I want to speak to the Virgo in you specifically right now because there is something about how you are wired that is both your greatest asset in navigating what is coming and the thing most likely to create unnecessary friction with it. You notice things, everything, in a way that most people do not. The details, the inconsistencies, the places where what is being presented does not quite align with what is actually true. You have a built-in quality detection system that runs continuously, and that has saved you from an enormous number of situations that would have cost you dearly if you had moved through them with less discernment. That system is valuable. It is one of the most valuable things you carry. But here is what I need to say about it in the context of next week. The things that are arriving are not things to be quality detected into smaller versions of themselves. They are things to be received. And there is a particular Virgo tendency when something genuinely good arrives to immediately begin looking for the catch, the thing that explains why this is not quite as good as it appears, the inconsistency that reveals the gift as something more complicated than a gift, not out of pessimism, out of the deep, ingrained, thoroughly earned wisdom of someone who knows that things which appear uncomplicated rarely are, and who has learned to protect themselves by finding the complication before it finds them. Next week, I need you to give that tendency a rest. Not permanently, not as a life practice, just next week, just for the specific moments when what is arriving is asking to be received rather than examined. Let yourself receive first. Examine later if you need to, but give the receiving its moment. Give the breath taking its full permission to take your breath before the analysis steps in to explain why it should not have. The third thing that is coming next week sits in the relational dimension of your life, and I feel it with a particular specificity that I want to honor by being precise about what I am reading. There is someone whose energy is woven into the energy of what is approaching for you next week in a way that is not peripheral, not one of the many contextual elements. Central. This person is either someone already present in your life, whose position in the landscape of what you are building is about to become significantly clearer, or someone who is entering your life in a way that next week makes undeniable. Either way, there is a human being in the coordinates of your next week who carries with them something you have been needing, not needing in the dependent sense, needing in the way that a plant needs light, not without which it dies, but without which it does not reach its full growth. This person is going to do something, say something, show up in some way that produces in you the particular feeling of being genuinely seen, not approximately seen, not seen from a comfortable distance that does not require too much precision, seen with the kind of accuracy that startles you, that makes you feel simultaneously completely known and completely safe in the knowing. That feeling, the specific feeling of someone's understanding of you being so accurate that it is almost disorienting, is going to be one of the breathtaking moments of next week. And it is going to come from a direction or with a quality of depth that you were not fully prepared for. which is the only way the genuinely breathtaking ever arrives, without enough warning to have built a defense against it. Now I want to talk about something that I have been feeling underneath everything else in this reading. Something that sits beneath the specific developments and the specific person and the specific revelation and the specific contact. Something more fundamental than any of those individual elements. There is a chapter ending right now, this week, in the days between now and the beginning of next week. A chapter that has been long, that has contained within it a particular quality of experience that I think you would describe, if you were being fully honest, as simultaneously meaningful and exhausting. Meaningful because what you went through in it mattered, because it shaped you in ways that were necessary, because the Virgo in you extracted every possible lesson from every possible difficulty and integrated those lessons into the person you are right now. Exhausting because that kind of sustained, thorough, leave nothing unexamined processing of difficult experience is genuinely tiring. Even when it is productive, even when the output is growth of the realist kind, the process costs something. And you have been paying that cost for a long time. That chapter is closing. Its final pages are being written right now, in the days before next week. And what next week represents is not just new developments arriving. It is the first chapter of what comes next. The chapter that the long, meaningful, exhausting one was preparing you for. The chapter where the preparation meets the opportunity, where the growth meets its expression, where the person you have become through everything you have been through finally gets to exist in circumstances that match their dimensions, not the compressed circumstances, the full ones, the one size for who you actually are, rather than who it was convenient for the previous chapter to need you to be. I want to address the skepticism that some of you are carrying into this reading. The Virgo skepticism specifically, which is different from ordinary skepticism because it is not rooted in pessimism. It is rooted in precision. In the Virgo, need for things to be accurate before they are accepted, for claims to be supported by evidence before they are believed, for promises to demonstrate their basis in reality before they are allowed to create expectation. That skepticism is entirely reasonable. And I am not going to ask you to abandon it in exchange for blind optimism. What I am going to ask instead is that you hold the skepticism lightly enough to be surprised, because next week is going to surprise you, not by defying your expectations, by exceeding them in ways that your skepticism had made it difficult to expect. And when you encounter that exceeding, when the reality of what next week delivers turns out to be more than your careful management of expectation had made room for, I want you to let yourself be surprised fully, without immediately locating the reason why the surprise should be modulated, without finding the catch before the gift has fully arrived. Just surprised, just breath taken, just standing in a moment that is better than you let yourself anticipate, and allowing it to be exactly that. Better, without the asterisk, without the qualification, without the Virgo footnote that explains why better. is probably temporary. Let me tell you about the specific quality of what breathtaking feels like when it arrives from a real place rather than a manufactured one. Because I think this is important. Because the breathtaking that is manufactured, the kind that comes from grand gestures and dramatic presentations and things designed specifically to produce a strong response, has a particular hollowness to it that Virgo energy detects immediately. You can feel when something is engineered to impress rather than genuinely impressive. When something is performing breathtaking rather than being it. And what is coming next week is not that. What is coming has the quality of the real thing, which means it may not arrive with fanfare. It may not announce itself as significant before it has proven itself to be. It may arrive quietly. In a conversation that starts as something ordinary, in a message that does not look like a life-altering message until you have read it and felt it land, in a moment between you and another person that has no external drama, but that carries an internal weight that stops you, that makes the ordinary noise of the world step back. That produces in you the particular stillness of someone who has just encountered something real and needs a moment to let the reality of it settle. That is the texture of what is coming. Not spectacular in the way that manufactured things are spectacular, genuine in the way that only real things are genuine, and to someone wired the way you are wired, someone who has been detecting the manufactured and the performed and the not quite real for so long, that encountering the actual, the real, the genuinely precisely what it appears to be is itself a revelation. That genuineness is going to take your breath away more completely than any grand gesture could. I need to say something about preparation because this reading has a specific purpose, and the purpose is not only to tell you what is coming, it is to help you be in the right condition to receive it. And the right condition for Virgo right now is not more preparation in the analytical sense. You have prepared thoroughly in the way that only Virgo prepares, which is to say more thoroughly than most people would consider necessary and more thoroughly than you probably give yourself credit for. The preparation is done. What is needed now is not more of it. What is needed is rest. Not physical rest necessarily, though that matters. The rest of not pushing, of not trying to anticipate and control and manage the arrival of what is coming through sheer force of Virgo preparation, of trusting that you have done enough and that the doing enough is visible in who you are right now, and that who you are right now is exactly who needs to show up next week to receive what next week has for you. Not a more prepared version, not a more polished version, not a version that has addressed every possible inadequacy and resolved every possible concern before daring to step into the moment. You, as you are right now, that is who next week is coming for. And that person is more than enough for everything that is about to arrive. Let me close with something that I feel needs to be the last thing you carry from this reading into the days ahead. Because there will be a moment next week, and I want you to be ready for this specific moment, where everything I have described is happening simultaneously, where the contact has arrived and the revelation has landed and the person has shown up and the chapter has turned and the space has opened and the breath has been taken. And in that moment, in the middle of all of it, there is going to be a very Virgo impulse to step slightly outside of it, to observe it from a small distance, to begin processing it rather than simply being inside it, to start the analysis before the experience has fully completed. I need you to resist that impulse. Just in that moment, just for as long as it takes to fully be inside what is happening, to feel all of it without the buffer of the observer, without the part of you that watches experience rather than having it stepping in to manage the intensity. Stay inside it. Let the breath be taken. Let the thing that has been held release. Let the exhale happen all the way down. Let the tears come if they come. Let the joy arrive at its full volume if that is what is there. Let the settling happen at whatever depth it wants to happen. Do not step back from this one. Not this one, because this one is the moment you have been managing and preparing and patiently, quietly, privately working toward for longer than you should have had to wait. And it deserves your full presence, not the processed version, not the observed version, not the carefully managed, this is how a person responds appropriately to good news version. The real version, the unguarded, fully present, both feet inside the moment version. The version that lets next week be exactly what it is, which is the most significant week you have had in a very long time. It is coming for you specifically, and it is going to be everything I said it would be